The arena smelled like ozone, and something older than ozone, like a place where the air had been excited too many times and never settled back into itself. I walked out from the dropship ramp and onto the floor of Vareth Prime, and I did not run, and I did not shout, and I did not raise my weapon at the stands. The Vithori Gladiate had evacuated their spectators 2 hours before the Ironseal Compact's columns entered the system. They had been watching the feeds from the other 8 arenas by then. They understood, by that point, what kind of audience we were. The floor was packed sand, red-orange under the alien sun, hard-tamped, with a faint geometric lattice pressed into the surface. I recognized the pattern. I had last seen it from above, through a cracked viewport, while our defense ships were being forced into formation around Veth Station Ardal. The jamming had been precise, elegant even. They had herded us like stock. The lattice was their scoring grid. It told the broadcast audience where each vessel had stood at the opening of PE Ardal 0031. 37 defense ships, 312 crew, arranged for the camera. They had filed us as volunteers. Gladiate Covenant Article 7 used the term consenting participants in scheduled proving events. The challenge beacon had gone out on open galactic frequency 6 weeks before. When we did not respond to accept, they read our silence as the acceptance of the challenged species. Standard Covenant procedure, they would later explain, for species who had not yet registered with the Gladiate Administrative Council. Our non-response was our signature. Our defense ships were our champion fleet. The outcome was recorded. The broadcast was archived. PE Ardal-0031, Proving Event, Ardal, Record Number 31. The 31st time the Gladiate had challenged a human installation. I was the only crew member of Veth Station Ardal, who was not aboard a defense ship when PE Ardal-0031 began. I had been in the maintenance crawl space beneath the docking collar, fixing a coolant coupling that had been flagged for 6 weeks. I heard the jam signal as a vibration in the hull more than a sound. I heard the defense ships undock, not by choice, but because the jam had locked their maneuvering thrusters in the Gladiate's formation pattern. I heard the broadcast frequency open on our own station speakers. The Gladiate's announcer used a synthesized voice that modulated for 17 known galactic languages simultaneously. I understood perhaps 4 words in it. I understood challenge. I understood commence. I understood concluded. I heard our ships destroyed in sequence over 19 minutes, and I did not need language for that. The hull transmitted it. Pressure signatures, electromagnetic scatter, the specific silence that follows a ship when a ship is no longer there. 19 minutes for 37 ships. The Gladiate's champion vessels were efficient. They had done this 30 times before us, to other species, and the timing in the file log showed consistent performance. We were not a difficult event for them. We were a scheduled one. 312 names. I had written them from memory in the rescue cutter on the way to Calloway's Gate. I had written them twice because the first time my handwriting had deteriorated by the end and I could not read it back cleanly. I did not cry while I wrote them. I want to be precise about that. Grief does not always look like grief. Sometimes it looks like a man in a rescue cutter, writing a list twice, in very careful handwriting, while the stars blur past the porthole. The Ironseal Compact was not built for Veth Station Ardal alone. By the time I was debriefed at Calloway's Gate, Earth knew about 30 other proving events involving human installations. 641 names across those 30 events, not counting our 312. 953 total, 9 arenas. Earth did not send a champion fleet. That is the thing I want to be clear about. The Gladiate had a protocol for challenger responses. Species who accepted the terms, designated their own champion vessels, arrived at the announced venue at the announced time. Some species did this. They lost, and the loss was filed, and that was the last Earth ever heard from most of them. We did not do that. Earth's response to PE Ardal 0031 was not a counter-challenge. It was not filed under any Covenant article. It was not broadcast. The compact was 690 warships, 76 per arena, plus the broadcast node strike packages. 9 columns, 1 per venue, simultaneous entry so that no arena could warn another. It had taken 14 months to assemble and stage. The Gladiate, in those 14 months, had filed 4 more proving events involving non-human species. We noted the dates, we noted the venues. Those venues were on the list. I had requested ground element attachment to column 9, which was assigned to Verith Prime. I was not a senior Marine. I was a corporal, with a maintenance rating and a coolant coupling that had been 6 weeks overdue. My attachment was approved by the Compact's ground element commander, Major Sela Voss, in 3 words: "Keep up, Reyes." She did not ask me why I wanted to be there. She did not need to. We breached Verith Prime's atmospheric perimeter at 0630 local sun, which put us at high noon on the arena floor. I had read that the Gladiate scheduled broadcasts for local midday, that the arena shadows were shortest then, that the audience feeds were clearest. And we had scheduled our arrival for the same time. There was no deliberate symbolism in this, only logistics, but I noticed it anyway. The other 8 columns hit their targets simultaneously. The Gladiate's fleet, their champion ships, their proving vessels, was not present in force at any arena. They had a standing flotilla at each venue, mostly administrative craft, 2 or 3 armed escorts. Our columns were 76 warships each. The math was not a fight, it was a ledger entry. The broadcast nodes went down in the first 40 seconds. All 14 of them, across all 9 arenas, at the same moment. The Gladiate lost their open channel uplink to Galactic Relay before a single arena was breached. We did not want them broadcasting this. The archive of PE Ardal 0031 lived on Galactic Relay servers, and always would. We had no interest in competing for airtime. This was not a proving event, this was a filing. I walked the arena floor while the Compact's ground element held the perimeter above. The stands were empty. Verith Prime could seat 400,000 spectators in its physical configuration, and another 7 billion in relay feed. On the day of PE Ardal 0031, the feed log showed 41 million active viewers. 41 million witnesses to the scoring grid, to our ships in formation, to the outcome, filed as sport. The herald found me at the center of the floor, which was where I had been heading. He, and I use the pronoun loosely, the Vethori Gladiate were not a species built for simple categories, stood approximately 2 meters, broad in the upper body, with the ceremonial rank sash of a primary broadcaster draped across his left shoulder. He had not fled. I gave him credit for that. He held himself with the specific composure of a being who understood that the outcome was certain and had decided to maintain dignity in it. He said something in the Gladiate's primary language. Our translator module was on a 3-second delay. When the translation came, it was, "You do not understand what the covenant means." The proving event is an honoring. It is the highest recognition the Gladiate can offer to a species that shows resistance. I had expected something like this. Not these exact words, but this category of words. The framework where what they had done was a gift, and our anger was a failure of understanding. I had read the Covenant's own documentation on the transport to Verith Prime. I had read Article 7 3 times. I had also read the broadcast log of PE Ardal-Enio 0031, the annotated version that the Compact's intelligence team had recovered with the Gladiate's internal quality assessment notes still attached. They had scored us a 7 out of 10 for formation discipline under jamming. They had flagged one of our pilot's final maneuver as technically elegant. I let him finish. Then I took out the data chip and held it at chest height where he could see it. He looked at it. He looked at me. I said, 312 names, and the names from the other 30 events. 953 total. I paused. You do not need to understand what those names mean. You need to understand what happens to the next 9 arenas if we hear a challenge beacon. He looked at the chip, he looked at the empty stands. He looked, I think, at the scoring grid pressed into the sand under his feet, because his eyes went down for a moment in a way that seemed involuntary. I set the chip on the sand at his feet. I did not hand it to him. I did not want to hand it to him. Play it, I said, to everyone you have ever challenged. Let them hear what the Ironseal compact filed. I turned and walked back to the dropship. Major Voss fell in beside me without a word. Above us, Column 9's warships held their positions in the noon light over Verith Prime. 76 hulls in hard formation, sun glinting on plate, casting no shadows worth measuring. The Gladiate Herald was still standing at the center of the arena floor when we lifted. I saw him on the rear camera feed, very small in the middle of all that empty red-orange sand, holding the chip. 9 arenas filed. 9 columns returned. 312 names, recorded clearly, on a chip that plays for 37 minutes without stopping. We left the channel open,